I'm Natalie. I'm 34 years old, sitting on my living room couch, staring at an email from HR that just turned my life upside down. The subject line? Opportunity in Europe, 2-year assignment. 2 years. That's not just a trip, it's a whole new chapter of life. I work for a large tech company, and they want me at our European branch for the next 24 months. The offer is amazing, great pay, career growth, the kind of thing you don't say no to unless you're crazy. But here's the snag, my apartment. I bought this place 3 years ago. It's not some luxury penthouse with a rooftop pool, but it's mine. Well, mine and the bank's, if we're being honest. I still have years left on the mortgage. I worked my tail off to get it, late nights, tight budgets, years of living in rentals that smelled faintly of someone else's cooking, no matter how much you scrubbed. So there's no way I'm just going to let it sit empty while I'm gone. That would be financially stupid. The mortgage doesn't care that I'm living abroad, it's due every month, whether I'm here or not. The logical solution? Rent it out. Let someone else's rent checks cover the mortgage while I'm sipping espresso in a European cafe. I called my lawyer, Michael. He's the guy who handled all the paperwork when I bought the place. Michael, I said, I'm heading overseas for 2 years, and I want to rent my apartment out. How do I do this right so Uncle Sam doesn't come knocking later? He chuckled. Smart thinking. You'll need a proper lease agreement, keep receipts, and report the income. I'll draft it for you. That's when I looked around my place and realized it needed a little TLC. Nothing major, but if I wanted good tenants and good rent, it had to look fresh, so I called a contractor a friend recommended. 3 guys showed up Monday morning. The lead guy, Anthony, took one look around. Kitchen needs fresh paint, bathroom tiles a little dated, living room's got scuff marks. 2 weeks, tops. But you can't stay here while we work, it's going to be noisy and dusty. Fine by me. I called my friend Samantha, she's got this beautiful, sprawling house across town. Hey, can I crash in your guest room for a couple weeks? Place is under renovation. Of course, she said. You know you're always welcome. So I packed a couple of suitcases and moved into Samantha's spare room. The next day, Anthony's crew started work, and while thank God I wasn't there, the noise was enough to wake the dead, and the dust? You could write your name on any surface within minutes. There was one thing I still hadn't done though, told my parents. And that was weighing on me. Here's the thing about my parents, they love me, but they are, a lot. They have an opinion about everything. They suggest things that aren't really suggestions. And when it comes to family matters, their version of fairness is, well, let's just say my younger sister Lauren always seems to come out ahead. Lauren's 26, still lives at home, and has been coddled since birth. 8 years between us, and somehow she's always been the baby who can do no wrong. She's been dating this guy Jason for 6 months. He's pleasant enough, but work? Not so much. Lauren's the same way, college degree, no real job to show for it. And, just to add insult to injury, guess who paid for most of her college because mom and dad couldn't afford it at the time? Yeah. Yours truly. I knew as soon as I told them about Europe, the apartment would come up. And I knew exactly what they'd say. Turns out, I was right. Lauren, I make more money because I work my tail off, not because it magically appears in my bank account. And newsflash, I still have bills to pay. Dad leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, that here we go again, look all over his face. We're saving for Lauren's wedding, he said, like that explained everything. I just stared at him. And I need rental income to pay my mortgage. How is my situation any different from yours? Lauren slammed her hand down on the table, hard enough to rattle the silverware. Because we're your family. And I don't want to live in mom and dad's rental. The neighborhood's awful. Your place is downtown, close to everything. I set my fork down and leaned forward. So you want the better apartment, but you don't want to pay for it? Her lips curled into a smirk. God, you're such a selfish witch. Jason, who had been happily shoveling mashed potatoes into his mouth, finally decided to chime in. Come on, Natalie. We wouldn't trash the place, we'd take care of it. I'm sure you would, I said, my voice as steady as I could keep it, but I'm not running a charity. The silence that followed could have frozen the pot roast solid. Mom's face went from pale to crimson in 3 seconds flat. "I think you should leave," she said, her voice cold enough to frost the windows. "Fine by me." I stood up, grabbed my purse, and walked out. Nobody followed me. Nobody said goodbye. The drive back to Samantha's place was a blur, my knuckles gripping the steering wheel, my jaw locked tight. When I walked into Samantha's kitchen, she took one look at my face and poured me a glass of wine. "Okay," she said, "tell me everything." And I did. Every word, every glare, every jab. She shook her head. "Natalie, they've always done this to you. Lauren gets the free ride, you get the responsibility. This is just another round of the same game." I knew she was right, but knowing didn't make it hurt less. For the next 3 days, I didn't hear a word from my parents or Lauren. No calls, no texts, just silence. Part of me was relieved, but part of me was waiting for the other shoe to drop. It did louder than I could have imagined. A few days later, I was back at my apartment checking on the renovations. Anthony and his crew had worked magic: fresh paint in the kitchen, crisp white tile in the bathroom, and the scuffed walls in the living room now looked brand new. I stood there admiring the place, thinking how easy it would be to rent now, when I glanced down at the rental applications. One couple in particular stood out: Matthew and Jessica, early 30s, both with steady jobs and excellent references. I called them that afternoon, and we set up a showing for 2 days later. When they arrived, right on time, I was ready to seal the deal. We rode the elevator up. I chatted about the neighborhood, the grocery store around the corner, the little Italian place 2 blocks away, the park just a short walk from the building. Then I unlocked my door, pushed it open, and froze. Lauren was sitting on my couch in sweatpants, scrolling on her phone. Jason was in my kitchen, making himself a sandwich. Suitcases were piled by the window. Her clothes draped over my armchair, like she owned the place. "What the hell is going on?" I said, my voice louder than I intended. Matthew and Jessica exchanged an uncomfortable glance. Lauren looked up casually. "Oh, hey, Natalie. You should have knocked." "Knocked? On my own apartment." Jason turned, sandwich in hand, and smiled like we were old friends bumping into each other at the grocery store. And just like that, I knew exactly what my mother had done. 2 days later, I pulled up to my building a few minutes early, the late morning sun glinting off the glass doors. I was feeling good, hopeful, even. Matthew and Jessica had sounded perfect on paper and over the phone. If all went well, I could head to Europe, knowing my apartment, my investment, was in responsible hands. Right on time, a silver sedan pulled into the parking lot. Out stepped a well-dressed couple, maybe early 30s. They smiled warmly as we shook hands, and together we took the elevator up to the 3rd floor. On the ride, I chatted about the neighborhood, how the grocery store was just around the corner, the little Italian place 2 blocks down that served the best chicken parmesan in town, and the park where you could catch live music on summer evenings. They seemed impressed. I could practically see them picturing their new life here. I pulled my keys from my purse as we reached my door. "Okay," I said, smiling, "here we are." But the second I swung that door open, my stomach dropped. Lauren was sprawled across my couch in sweatpants, scrolling through her phone like she owned the place. Jason was in my kitchen, casually assembling a sandwich. Suitcases were stacked by the window, and her clothes were draped over my armchair like yesterday's laundry. I froze in the doorway. What the hell is going on? Matthew and Jessica stopped short behind me. Jessica's polite smile faltered. Lauren didn't even look embarrassed. She just smirked. "Oh, hey, Natalie. You should have knocked." "Knocked? On my own apartment?" I snapped. Jason turned around, a slice of turkey in one hand, and grinned like this was some sitcom meet cute. Jessica cleared her throat. Is this a bad time?" Before I could answer, Lauren spoke up. "Mom gave us the key yesterday. We're moving in while you're gone." I clenched my jaw. "She did what?" Lauren waved a hand toward the pile of luggage. "The spare key you gave her when you bought this place?" "Yeah, she gave it to us. We moved in last night." Matthew shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we should come back another time." But I knew by the look on their faces that another time wasn't happening. This was over. My perfect tenants were walking out the door. Sure enough, they muttered a polite goodbye and left. As soon as the door closed behind them, I turned back to Lauren and Jason. Get out. We're not going anywhere, Lauren said, folding her arms. Mom said we could stay. Jason nodded, like that settled it. Don't worry about utilities, we figured you could keep paying those. I pulled out my phone and called Mom. The second she answered, I didn't bother with pleasantries. Did you give Lauren my apartment key? Her voice had that defensive edge I knew too well. Lauren needs a place to stay, and you're being selfish about this whole thing. I thought if they just moved in, you'd realize how silly you were being. Silly? Mom, this is breaking and entering. They don't have permission to be here. They're family, Natalie. Stop being dramatic. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. Lauren was laughing now. You should have seen your face when you walked in. Priceless. That was it. I walked out, shut the door, and dialed 911. I lowered the phone slowly, my fingers still tight around it, my pulse pounding in my ears. Lauren was lounging there like she had a legal deed in her hand, and Jason was chewing his sandwich like this was some kind of casual lunch date. She smirked. You done? Or do you want me to talk to Mom for you? That laugh, low, smug, and meant to get under my skin, snapped something in me. You think this is a joke? You just cost me a solid set of tenants. Do you have any idea what kind of position you've put me in? Lauren shrugged. You'll find somebody else, it's not like you need the money. That was it. I grabbed my purse, stepped into the hall, and shut the door just hard enough to make the frame rattle. Then I pulled up my phone and dialed 911. My name is Natalie, I told the dispatcher, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. I own an apartment, and there are people inside who do not have my permission to be there. She asked for my address and told me to wait in the lobby. 20 minutes later, 2 uniformed officers Martinez and Kim stepped through the glass doors. I filled them in as we rode the elevator up, how my parents had pushed me to let my sister live there for free, how I'd said no, and how my mother had apparently decided to hand over my spare key anyway. When I unlocked my own door in front of them, Lauren and Jason froze mid-motion. What's going on? Lauren asked, but her voice didn't have that same cocky edge anymore. Ma'am, Officer Martinez said to me, can you confirm that these individuals don't have permission to be in your home? That's correct, I said. Do you have any lease agreement or documentation giving you the right to be here? Officer Kim asked them. Jason wiped his hands on a paper towel. Our mom gave us the key. She said we could live here. The owner of the apartment, Martinez said, motioning toward me, is telling us you don't have permission. That means you need to gather your belongings and leave within the next hour. Lauren's face twisted. Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous, Natalie, you're ruining my life. She stepped toward me, jabbing a finger in my direction. Ma'am, Kim warned her, you need to back up. Jason, puffing up like a rooster, shoved Officer Kim's arm. Don't touch her. In less than 5 seconds, Jason was face down on my floor, with handcuffs clicking shut, and Lauren was shrieking as Martinez restrained her, too. You're both under arrest, Martinez said flatly, trespassing and assaulting a police officer. They read them their rights, while I stood there, leaning against the wall, my arms crossed. The scene felt surreal, my little sister in cuffs, her fiancé looking stunned that actions actually have consequences. When the officers walked them out, Lauren's insults turned into sobs. Jason stayed quiet, staring at the floor. The apartment was finally silent, except for my own breathing. Their suitcases sat by the window, like unwanted guests. I grabbed them, shoved every piece of clothing I could find inside, no folding, no neat piles, and zipped them up. Then I called a courier service to deliver them straight to my parents' house. Within an hour, I had my locksmith on site, fresh locks, fresh keys. My mother's spare was now a useless piece of metal. By the time I shut the door behind him, my phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree, calls, texts, all from my parents. I didn't answer a single one. Because in that moment, standing in my own home with my own keys in my pocket, I knew one thing for certain, this was my line in the sand, and I wasn't stepping back over it. Lauren was still grinning when she said it, you should have seen your face when you walked in here. She turned to Jason like it was some shared joke, priceless. That was it for me. No yelling, no arguing, just done. I walked out, closed the door behind me, and headed straight to my car. My hands were shaking as I slid into the driver's seat, but my voice was steady when I dialed 911. I need to report a break-in, I told the dispatcher. There are people in my apartment who don't have permission to be there. She asked for my address, told me to wait in the lobby, and said officers were on their way. 20 minutes later, 2 uniformed officers stepped through the front doors, Martinez and Kim, badges catching the light. We rode the elevator up together as I laid it all out, how I was leaving for Europe for 2 years, how my sister and her fiancé had been told no, and how my mother decided she'd override me by handing them my spare key. I unlocked my own door, and there they were. Still in my living room, still acting like they had all the time in the world, only now, there was a flicker of worry in their eyes. "What's going on?" Lauren asked, but her voice lacked its earlier bite. "Let's see some ID," Officer Martinez said. They fished out their licenses, and he looked them over, before turning to me. "Ma'am, can you confirm you did not give these individuals permission to be here?" "That's correct. I did not." Officer Kim faced them. "Do you have any documentation showing you have a legal right to occupy this apartment? A lease? Written permission? Anything?" Lauren's eyes darted toward me. "Our mom gave us the key. She has a spare. The owner is standing right here," Martinez said evenly. "She's telling us you do not have permission. You need to gather your belongings and leave within the next hour." That's when the switch flipped. Lauren's face went red, and she launched into a screaming fit, calling me every name in the book, telling me I was destroying her life, swearing I'd always been jealous of her. Then she started toward me, fast. Kim caught her by the arm before she got close. That's when Jason decided to escalate. "Get your hands off her," he shouted, shoving Officer Kim. "Bad move." In an instant, both officers had him on the floor, cuffing his wrists behind his back. Lauren was shrieking even louder now, kicking at Martinez as he moved to restrain her. Seconds later, she was in handcuffs too. "You're both under arrest," Martinez said flatly. "Trespassing and assault on a police officer." They read them their rights, while I stood there, still and silent, watching the scene play out in my own apartment. My little sister, wrists bound, screaming and crying as she was led out the door. Jason, head down, saying nothing now. When their footsteps faded down the hall, the quiet was almost disorienting. I closed the door and just stood there for a moment, breathing in the stillness. Then I looked around at the suitcases by the window, the clothes draped over my chair, the half-empty carton of orange juice on the counter. It took me 2 full hours to pack their things, no folding, no careful stacking. Just grab, shove, zip. When I was done, I called a courier service. "Pick up 2 suitcases from this address," I told them, "and deliver them to my parents' house. Today." I didn't want to see their faces again. Not today, maybe not ever. As I locked the door behind the courier, I slipped my hand into my pocket, feeling the weight of my keys. For the first time that day, I felt like my apartment was mine again, and I wasn't about to let anyone take that from me. While I waited for the courier to show, I made another call to a locksmith the building super had recommended when I first moved in. "Hey, it's Natalie from 3B. I need my locks changed today right now, if possible." He didn't miss a beat. "I can be there in an hour." True to his word, he arrived with his toolkit, got to work, and 30 minutes later I was holding brand new keys. My parents' spare? Now, nothing more than a useless piece of metal. The entire time he worked, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing, call after call from my parents. I didn't answer. Then came the texts, rapid-fire messages from my mother telling me I was selfish, ungrateful, a terrible daughter, even a monster, for having my own sister arrested. I set the phone face down and let it vibrate itself into silence. The next morning, Officer Martinez called. "Your sister and her boyfriend spent the night in jail. They're asking if you want to press charges." I paused. A part of me wanted to, but they were still family, at least in name. "No," I said finally, "not for the trespassing. But what Jason did to your officer? That's up to you." He told me Jason would likely face a fine, community service, maybe anger management classes. I told him that wasn't my problem, and I meant it. That's when it hit me. I had less than a week before my flight to Europe, and thanks to Lauren's little stunt, I'd lost Matthew and Jessica. I needed tenants fast. So I called Daniel, a real estate agent I've known for years. Daniel, I'm leaving in a week. I need my apartment rented immediately. Send me photos, he said. I'll list it, screen everyone, handle the showings. You focus on packing. It was exactly what I needed to hear. That afternoon, I spent hours taking photos from every angle, sunlight streaming through the living room windows, the fresh paint in the kitchen, the crisp new tile in the bathroom. I sent Daniel the shots along with the rent price and lease terms. 3 days later, I was on a plane bound for Europe. 2 weeks after that, Daniel called with good news, found the perfect tenants. Lease is signed. They were a married couple, both doctors, clean, professional, and responsible. Every month, like clockwork, the rent hit my account, covering my mortgage to the penny. My apartment was in good hands, and for the first time in months, I felt free. Living in Europe was everything I'd hoped for. The work was challenging, the city streets alive with energy, and every free weekend felt like a new adventure. The best part? My phone stayed blissfully silent. No calls from my parents, no angry texts from Lauren. It was like they'd erased me from their lives, and honestly, I welcomed the peace. Then one afternoon, my phone lit up with a call from Aunt Carolyn, my dad's sister, and the only member of my family with a consistent grip on reality. Natalie, honey, how's life over there? She asked warmly. Then her tone shifted. I wanted to tell you about Lauren's wedding situation. I leaned back in my chair, already bracing myself. Carolyn explained that Jason's parents had learned exactly what happened at my apartment. They'd been the ones to bail him out after his arrest, and when they asked him why, he spilled everything: the trespassing, the police, the arrest. They were horrified, Carolyn said. Absolutely horrified. They called your parents, told them they were disgusted. Said they couldn't believe how entitled Lauren was. For a moment, I just sat there, stunned, not because of Lauren's behavior, but because someone outside my immediate circle finally saw it for what it was. And apparently, that was only the beginning of the fallout. Carolyn didn't sugarcoat it. Jason's parents told my folks point blank that Lauren was spoiled and entitled. And they weren't just upset, they were done. They had been planning to pay for a big chunk of the wedding, had already put down deposits for the venue and catering, but after hearing the apartment story, they yanked every penny of support. They told them, Carolyn said, if you want to get married, you pay for it yourselves. We're not rewarding behavior like that. I actually laughed out loud. It was the first time in this whole mess that someone besides me held Lauren accountable. But it got better. Apparently, Lauren marched straight to my mother, begging her to let them move into my parents' rental property. And my mom, yes, the same woman who called me selfish for not handing over my apartment, told her no. So Mom suddenly understands rental income? I said to Carolyn, unable to hide the irony in my voice. Exactly, Carolyn chuckled. Lauren didn't take it well. She threw an absolute tantrum, screaming about how unfair it was, and accusing my parents of being just as greedy as I was. That went over like a lead balloon. They had a huge blowout, and Lauren stormed out. Now she and Jason were holed up in a cramped studio apartment, barely speaking to my parents. Carolyn said the whole family was at war. Lauren blamed me for ruining her wedding. My parents blamed me for causing all the drama. And everyone seemed to be mad at everyone else. Then Carolyn told me something that made my jaw drop. Your mom said just last week that if you'd been a better sister, none of this would have happened. A better sister? Are you kidding me? I was almost laughing at how absurd it was. Carolyn didn't hesitate. You've been more than generous with them over the years. The way they've treated you? Shameful. Hearing someone in my family actually acknowledge that it felt like a weight off my chest. Carolyn had always been the one who saw things clearly. How are Jason and Lauren doing financially? I asked. Not great, Carolyn said. Jason's picking up odd jobs, but nothing steady. Lauren's got a part-time retail job, but she hates it. Keeps whining that she should be planning her wedding, not working. Has she tried getting a full-time job? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Carolyn sighed. You know Lauren. Motivation isn't exactly her strong suit. 3 months later, Carolyn called again. This time, the news was even juicier. Jason's parents had tried to patch things up with him, but only if he apologized to me and made things right. Jason flat out refused. He says he didn't do anything wrong, Carolyn told me. Says you overreacted by calling the police. I rolled my eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. His parents told him until he takes responsibility, they don't want anything to do with him, Carolyn continued. So now Jason had lost his family's support too. And the pressure was showing. Lauren and Jason's relationship was crumbling, constant arguments, money problems, and no wedding in sight. Lauren called your mom crying last week, Carolyn said. Begged her to talk to you, to convince you to help them somehow. What did mom say? She said she's not calling you, because you made it clear you don't care about family. I laughed. Good. Because I wouldn't have answered anyway. 6 months into my European assignment, I was thriving. My apartment back home was generating steady rental income. My mortgage was paid on time every month, and with my overseas salary, I was stacking a healthy savings account. The work was stimulating, the travel opportunities were incredible, and I had made some amazing friends among my colleagues. Best of all, I hadn't heard a peep from my parents or Lauren in months. Exactly how I wanted it. Carolyn still checked in every few weeks, but I'd stopped asking for updates. I genuinely didn't care what Lauren and Jason were doing anymore. They'd made their choices, and now they were living with the consequences. One evening, Carolyn called while I was looking out over the city lights from my apartment balcony. You know, she said, I'm proud of you. Your parents have always expected you to be the one to fix everyone else's messes. It was time someone said no. I felt that deep in my bones. I just got tired of being taken advantage of. As you should have, Carolyn replied. You've worked hard for everything you have, nobody, family or not, has the right to just take it from you. As I stood there, the skyline twinkling in the distance, I realized I didn't feel even a trace of guilt. My apartment was well cared for, my bills were paid, and my life was entirely on my own terms. Sometimes, family isn't about blood, it's about the people who actually respect and support you. And sometimes, the healthiest, most freeing choice you can make is to walk away from those who see you only as a source of money or favors. That's exactly what I did. And I haven't looked back. This story carries several life lessons that resonate strongly with a middle-aged American audience, especially those who have worked hard for their independence. One of the clearest takeaways is that setting boundaries is not selfish, it's necessary. Natalie's refusal to hand over her apartment, even to family, underscores the importance of protecting one's assets and financial stability. Years of hard work, sacrifices, and responsible choices shouldn't be erased by someone else's entitlement. Another key lesson is that family loyalty should be earned, not blindly given. Being related by blood doesn't entitle someone to override your decisions or treat your resources as communal property. Respect must go both ways, and when it doesn't, you have every right to step back. The story also highlights that actions have consequences. Lauren and Jason's disregard for boundaries led to legal trouble, financial setbacks, and broken relationships. In contrast, Natalie's calm, decisive actions, calling the police, changing the locks, and moving forward demonstrate the power of enforcing limits without getting dragged into emotional chaos. Ultimately, the message is this: you have the right to protect your peace, property, and future. Walking away from those who only see you as a source of money or favors isn't cruelty, it's self-respect.